Welcome to the start of a new session here at the Capitol. I'm Veronica Marshall, and this week on Senate Spotlight, infrastructure, fighting fraud, and gun control are some of the issues that will get extra attention this session.
The gun debate will happen, but I hope that the larger debate of the many different things that we need to be doing to addressing safety is considered.
I'm working on a piece of legislation that would require federal agents to follow Minnesota's law around rendering aid.
We talked to Senate leaders about their expectations, priorities, and hopes for the new session. Plus, this year is a supplemental budget year. We break down what that means for legislators and what it could mean for your communities. That's all coming up.
Senate Spotlight is produced by the Minnesota Senate and Senate Media Services.
A lot has changed for Minnesota since the Senate's interim began last year. Now, as senators return to the Capitol and their work here, they're bringing with them new legislative priorities. Majority Leader Erin Murphy shares the Senate DFL's focus this session. Senator, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So a lot has happened since the end of last session to the start of this session. A lot. I mean, that's an understatement, right? So how has that changed your caucus, and how do you plan on legislating this session? Has it impacted that?
I don't think it would be anything but honest to say that we've all been impacted by the level of political and human violence that we've experienced, here in the legislature with their colleagues being assassinated in the attempted assassination of Senator Hoffman and his family. The Annunciation shootings reminded us that our kids aren't necessarily safe in our schools. And the last month of violence at the hands of a federal government, I think, will have long-lasting impacts on us. And it has, I think, shifted us. I've spent more than time I ever anticipated on Capitol security and on gun violence prevention, which is something I came into office hoping to advance. And I think it is important for us to remember that our politics matter, our democracy matters, and we have to use that in order to protect it. And there are forces that are wanting to push people away from that, and we have to fight against that and make sure that Minnesotans are free to participate in their government and free to participate with their voices and the constitutional provisions that protect our free speech, our right to gather and assemble, to peacefully protest, to carry a weapon. Those things have all been challenged in the last month by this federal government. And we have to make sure Minnesotans understand that their freedoms are our imperative, and we're going to fight for them.
Yeah, you mentioned public participation, and there has been a lot. And a lot of what they've been saying is they've been asking for action from elected officials. So what are your options? You mentioned gun violence and Capitol security.
I want to give a lot of credit to my colleagues in our caucus who have been, since the 2024 election, preparing for the moment that we're in right now. And I have colleagues who have been just privately, and you wouldn't necessarily see them doing this, but providing a lot of support for their neighbors and families who feel fearful, who are afraid to leave their homes, or if they do, they want an escort. So I've got colleagues that are helping kids get to school, people get to work, providing support for food and for rent. They're serving as constitutional observers. They're, in some cases, mediating between community members and ICE. I have been so proud of my colleagues and really proud of Minnesota in the way they have stood up for what we believe in here in this state, for people's safety, for one another, and for a government that serves the people. As we come into session, I think there are things that Minnesotans are hoping that we will accomplish, whether it is a ban on masks. Senator Port is carrying that. Legislation that creates a civil right of action against federal actions that put us in harm's way. Senator Champion and Senator Fate are carrying that. I'm working on a piece of legislation that would require federal agents to follow Minnesota's law around rendering aid. It was unconscionable to me that Renee Good was allowed to first be shot and then allowed to die in her car without rendering aid. That's not what we expect in Minnesota, and if people are going to be in Minnesota, they should follow our laws. I think this president is very interested in rendering us neutral, like he has done with the Congress, and while the Congress has yielded to that, we are not. Minnesotans have a constitution, we have state laws, we expect the people that are coming into the state follow those, and we're going to make sure that we're working on that this session.
Any other top priorities this session that you're looking to take on?
I think you will see action on bonding, one of our primary principles this session. Another installment on the issue of fraud, something that we've worked on for the last now 4 years since we've come into this majority. I think, there are issues that have emerged as a result of the occupation here in the state of Minnesota dealing with housing and small businesses. So I've got colleagues who are taking a look at that. And then last, that big bill that the president is so proud of is causing real harm in the states, including ours. We've spent a fair amount of time this summer and fall in a subcommittee studying the federal impacts, and you'll see continued work on that, as well as our steps into understanding what we can do to mitigate the harm being caused by that legislation that the president signed into law.
You mentioned bonding, and this is a supplemental budget year, which means bonding and infrastructure and capital investments are going to be a focus, or at least they traditionally are. The governor has put forth his bonding bill proposal, and it's less than some members of the Capital Investment Committee had wished for. It's less than the need that has been requested. So where do you go from there?
Oh, the governor is going to propose he's going to make a proposal, and we welcome that, and we're going to make one as well. Senator Pappas, who leads capital investment or bonding for the Minnesota Senate, is she's interested in a more significant proposal than that, and she has the receipts. She spent a lot of time across the state talking with communities and community leaders about the needs that they have. It's significant. It's more than we could do in one bonding year, but she is determined to bring her voice and that of the other chairs, Senator Housley, Representative Fooley, Representative Mary Franson together, and a proposal that begins to meet more of the needs of the people of Minnesota.
You previously said that infrastructure is not a tool for leverage. So how do you ensure that doesn't happen?
I can control my own behavior. I want to make sure that Minnesotans understand that our caucus is squarely behind a bonding proposal this year. We tried at the end of last session to get the leaders of the other caucuses to agree that we would do a significant bonding bill this year, and the Republicans declined to support that because they want to be able to use the tool of leverage to try and get something that they might not be able to achieve otherwise because they don't have the votes to pass it. So it will be left to them to see if they're going to use the bonding bill and the needs of Minnesotans for that goal, but we won't do that. We're gonna move a bonding bill, and hopefully we'll earn the votes to pass it.
I will say, I think that there is hope from the other caucus this session to get that done. I just saw a statement from Republican Senator Jason Rarick. He put it out saying, "My hope is it will follow last year's example, a bipartisan effort concentrating only on key infrastructure investments that are long overdue." So it sounds like you guys have done it before, and there's a wish to do it again.
Well, where there's a will to accomplish something, we can do it. And so that's why it's so important for me to be clear. We have the will to move a bonding bill this session. I have the beholder in terms of what is necessary infrastructure, as Senator Rarick is describing there. But that's part of the negotiation over a bill. Once we've decided we'll do one, it is much easier to get it done. So that's the first question. I'm glad to hear his perspective.
All right, Senator, we're going to turn now to fraud. It's been highlighted as a reason for federal actions in the state, from funding cuts to that targeted enforcement that you mentioned. And critics have said that the state hasn't taken significant action to fight fraud in 8 years. How do you respond to comments like that, or where do we go from there?
Well, I would like to begin by saying these pages, many pages, is the litany of things that our caucus has passed since 2023. I think there are 5 or 6 pages here. The only thing that hasn't passed yet is the independent inspector general that Senator Gustafson has moved, and of course that got stalled out in the Minnesota House. So I hope that they hear that in the committees and bring it to a vote on the floor so the governor can take it up and sign it. We've taken the issue very seriously. We do not want programs that we put into place to be stolen by fraudsters, and we believe those people should be prosecuted. I'm worried about the ability to prosecute since we've seen a mass exodus from the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's a concern of mine. But let me say that I think this president used fraud as a pretext to do what he wanted to do already, to come into the state of Minnesota and level violent, sometimes reckless, and sometimes lawless force against the people of Minnesota. And perhaps he decided to use fraud as that pretext because of Nick Shirley and the YouTube videos that he did that have been proven false, but have hurt children and child care. This is an incredible moment in our country right now, and we can't be playing games with people's lives. And that stunt with a YouTube video and the Republicans who invited him in was a stunt. So I think it's really important that the listeners hear from me that we take fraud very seriously. We have for the numbers of years that we have been in the majority since 2023. We've passed a number of pieces of legislation, and you will see one more round coming from us on program integrity around the human services work that continues that Senator Hoffman, Senator McQuaid, Senator Mohammed, Senator Fateh have already undertaken in that committee.
Senator, let's now go to the budget. Is there any appetite this session to address that looming deficit we see in the planning years in fiscal year 28-29?
So we did tremendous work on that question when we balanced the budget in 2025. It is the last thing that we did during the special session was finalize a budget that, of course, is in place, and we narrowed that looming deficit to a couple $100 million. We're seeing that shift now, I think, in part because of the federal government and that big bill that they passed and the things that they have done to Minnesota over the course of the fall. That's really frustrating to me. I'm grateful we have a budget in place. We have been incredible stewards of Minnesota's tax dollars. We have a surplus, a modest surplus, and I hope that we are very, very frugal in the session. I think that's going to be important. But if we pass a bonding bill, we have to pay for the debt service. There are security measures that we've put in place that are going to cost us a little bit of money. So there will be, I think, a small omnibus supplemental budget bill. But the balancing of the budget in the out years, I think now is in question because of the federal government and the things that they have done to the state of Minnesota. We will see those impacts in the upcoming forecasts. And you should know that we are going to be like a dog with a bone to make sure that we continue to balance the budget because that's our job. We're committed to that in our caucus. We're not going to play games.
I thought it was really nice during MMB's November forecast how they made a special note of how hard you guys worked last session to balance the budget. So, you know, it's noticed.
Yeah.
That's
good.
Yes. The final question to you. You've talked about how senators need to work together regardless of their caucus. Are there any plans in the works to encourage that kind of collaboration?
I think we've grown a lot in that direction. And I think you will continue to see it. I've, seen Leader Johnson and my Republican colleagues over the course of the summer and the fall. We've experienced some tragedy together. We're also heading into an election year that sometimes fosters division more than it does the ability to work together. And we have to do two things. We do need to show Minnesotans that we are committed to them and doing the work. I always invite my colleagues to join me in that work, and we will continue to do that. And then we will take ourselves out into the campaign trail and make our cases to the people of Minnesota about why we're the ones who should have the ability to continue to lead. Those things fit together in our world, and one should not negate the other. So I look forward to working with Leader Johnson and my Republican colleagues as we move forward this session.
I hope to catch you guys on one of your walks together one of these days. All right, Senator, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For many reasons, this session will look different than last session. For example, last session, senators had to balance the budget. Now, with that work mostly behind them, they're turning their eyes to the state's roadways, water systems, and electrical grids, because this year is all about infrastructure. They say good things come in pairs, and while the forecast may not always be good, Eric Nauman with Senate Counsel Research and Fiscal Analysis says it's a rule Minnesota follows when it comes to the budget.
Minnesota enacts what's called a biennial budget. A biennial budget simply means for 2 years. And so in an odd-numbered year, the legislature is enacting a brand new budget.
like we did last session in 2025.
There have been 35 ayes and 32 noes. The bill is passed and its title agreed to.
And now that we're in 2026,
we are not enacting a full budget, but what we are doing is making changes to the budget that has already been enacted.
those changes are based on Minnesota Management and Budget's latest budget forecast, something else Minnesota does in pairs.
We do it twice because the November forecast usually informs what the governor produces for his budget or his supplementary budget. The February forecast usually allows for more precise information.
The November 2025 outlook was mixed.
Getting into the forecast specifics, we now project a budget surplus of nearly $2.5 billion at the end of the current 26-27 biennium, and that is $575 million more than our end of session estimate. Left unspent, the surplus carries over into the planning years, helping to reduce the projected negative balance in the next biennium.
So the legislature did a fair bit of work in the last legislative session, the 2025 session, to put the budget in a good position. However, we also take the budget temperature for the next biennium, so that would be fiscal years 28 and 29, and that budget is in negative territory. It's projected to be in negative territory for about $2 billion.
Which leaves the legislature with three options to balance the next biennium: cut spending, raise revenue, or take a wait-and-see approach.
I think there's a lot of unknowns about how the legislature will approach the current budget situation. In theory, the legislature could begin working on that, but that'll be a very big job. The benefit right now is that we have time to work on it, and so fewer changes probably enacted now might pay dividends in the next budget when that's actually being worked on.
But even with all of the unknowns, there is one topic sure to come up this session.
We make supplements in an even-numbered year, and we focus our fiscal attention on the capital investment bill. Think about a building, a bridge, a road. These kinds of things are paid for with capital investment dollars. And most recently, the governor has submitted a capital investment recommendation for the legislature to consider. And now it's the legislature's job to respond to that.
The Senate's Capital Investment Committee Chair, Senator Sandy Pappas, has responded to the governor's bonding proposal. In a statement, she said, while the governor has been a capital investment ally, his $907 million bonding bill is modest. To put the $907 million bill in perspective, Pappas says the state received $6.5 billion in requests from state agencies, state colleges and universities, and local governments. That's a difference of about $5.6 billion. Regardless as to whether it's a budget year or a supplemental year, you can always count on new bills being introduced here in the Senate. So if there's a bill this session you'd like to keep an eye on, we can help you track it. Just head to our Minnesota State Legislature website. That's leg.mn.gov. Under the Bill Search and Status heading, click the link for My Bills. Once you've created your free account, you can track Senate bills via their number and topic. The page will show you any recent action taken on the bill, such as floor votes or engrossments, as well as upcoming actions like new hearings. But you have to log in to see the updates. This coming Tuesday, February 17th, is the official start of the Senate's new session. What will it look like? Minority Leader Mark Johnson gives us a preview of the Senate Republicans' priorities this session. Senator, welcome back to Senate Spotlight.
It's so good to be here. It feels like a lifetime ago since we did this last.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. Let's start off by talking about current events. Right now, we're seeing an increased federal presence here in Minnesota. Just speaking solely from a Senate perspective, what can be done about that?
So these are federal partners that have been around the state for many, many years. I think you see that the operation now has expanded quite a bit. We've brought in the federal agencies have brought in more federal agents to help with the immigration enforcement in the state. And now this mostly falls under federal law. And so there's very limited amount of jurisdiction that we have to do much within that. Now, what we need to see is more cooperation with the governor and the mayor regarding the federal presence in the state. But there is some clarification that we can be doing it from the legislative point of view. And so those are some of the things that we'll probably be working on this session on the areas that we can cooperate and have bipartisan agreements on. But there is so much more that's going on beyond the ice that we've got a busy session coming ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that, Senator. I know a lot of people have been asking about that. You mentioned working bipartisanly. Along those lines, though, we've been seeing increasing partisanship here in the state. How can senators bridge that gap and work together during these divided times?
Yeah, that's something that I really hope that we can set the tone in the state, especially on the first day of session as we come together to really memorialize the Hortmans and the tragedy that happened in June 14th, and also just celebrate Senator Hoffman coming back here to the Senate. And so hopefully we can set the tone that, yes, we can argue about policy and we can do those sorts of things. But again, let's remain as friends. Let's keep the humanity in politics this session, and that's what I'm really hoping we can do. One of the things that Senator Murphy and I do quite frequently is spend some time together once a week and going for a walk or whatever it may be, and just talking about what we can be doing together, how can we work bipartisanly on the Senate floor and do those things. And so hopefully that continues this year as we start this new session.
I love how you said that. It reminds me of one of my favorite phrases, which is about conflict resolution, is that you confront the problem, not each other, right?
Yeah.
That's how you find those solutions. Let's talk about your top objectives this session. Reducing fraud has been consistently something that your caucus has mentioned as a priority. Is that still a top issue?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think what's really happening in this state is you have two issues. You have the fraud issue, and then you can go on the flip side of that same coin over to the affordability issue in the state. And you've got folks who are at home, they're working hard, they're trying to figure out how to make ends meet. They get that tax statement in the mail, and it's so jarring to them. And then they turn on the TV and they see the fraud that's happening, where folks are setting out a mailbox and taking home millions of dollars through fraudulent organizations. And I think there's a lot of dissonance within people's minds when they are contemplating that. Here I can't hardly make it, and yet fraudsters are walking away with millions of dollars. What can we do to address that? And that's going to be a lot of the focus that we have in the Minnesota Senate. And we've got members who are working on both issues on that, on the fraud and then also the affordability, to really make sure that Minnesota is a place where we trust the government again, and that we have people who are just thriving. Our school districts are thriving, our counties and our families and businesses. This is a place to be. We want the state to be the shining star it once was. And we're going to have a lot of work in front of us to do that, but this session is a great place to get started.
You mentioned fraud and affordability. What else do you plan on advancing this session?
Well, this session typically is what we would call a bonding year or a capital investment year. And so that's going to be something that we're going to be continuing to work on. Committees have been going around the state looking at leaky water pipes and bridges that are having some issues in them. So we're going to try to figure out, well, what can we do to invest in the state and making sure that our capital infrastructure is up to snuff. One of the things that hinges on is what the February forecast for our state budget looks like. And how revenues and expenses are coming out. And that allows us to determine what we can put on the state's credit card. If we are going broke, well, you don't want to be spending more and having to do the debt service. So we're going to be looking at a few of those things too.
Yeah, along those lines, MMB released its November forecast, and it reflected the work that you guys did last session to balance the budget. And that gave us a larger than expected surplus at the end of this biennium. However, we still have work to do. There's a projected deficit in the planning years. This is a shortened session. Do you think there'll be any room there to try and tackle this deficit?
Well, we'll absolutely have to see. I think this year there's going to be a lot of noise around, campaigns and different things. Not that that's bad. I mean, we've got to make sure that we're going out and making our case to Minnesota voters why to reelect Republicans both in their seats and then also put them into leadership in the Senate. But it's going to be a difficult year to have those conversations about the budget. If we don't do a supplemental budget, there's not a lot of room to address it, but it is concerning when you have a $3 billion deficit remaining out there. We've got to start taking care of that real soon. But it just depends on what that February forecast really looks like.
You mentioned the campaigns. So far, more than a dozen senators have announced their plans to retire at the end of this session. And for those who want to continue serving their districts, their campaigns will begin soon if they haven't already started. Will that impact legislating this session?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that number is climbing close to 20 senators at this point that have announced their retirement. And so it really changes the dynamic of the Senate. It's going to be a great year to work together as they're kind of exiting out this year. But it is a bunch of institutional knowledge that you lose during that, and that's so hard to see on both sides of the aisle. A lot of folks are so good. We lose folks like Warren Limmer, who've been there for 38 years. We also lose Senator Rest, who's been there for 41 years as well, too. And so people that we've come to respect and call friends during that time. So it'll be interesting, but some fresh blood coming into the Senate and new ideas, also very exciting. But what a transitional year for the Minnesota Senate as an institution.
Speaking of new ideas, during the interim, there was a push to address gun violence. Now that we're back in session, that will be picked up again. Your caucus has called for common sense solutions. What does that look like?
Yeah, so Democrats have been very, very focused on guns, and that is their one solution that they have is banning guns and really walking over a Second Amendment right on that in many respects. Minnesota Senate Republicans are really looking at the safety of schools and communities, and that's a more encompassing package of what does that mean? It means mental health issues. It means school safety initiatives. It means making sure that law enforcement has the proper training and equipment to address those things. The gun debate will happen, but I hope that the larger debate of the many different things that we need to be doing to addressing safety is considered on the Senate floor.
Okay. Senator, final question for you. I'm wondering, when we get to the end of this session and you're looking back and reflecting, what's one thing you're going to look for to determine if it's been successful?
I think so. There are a number of policy issues, of course, that we're going to be looking for in the state, making sure that we are taking care of the basics of what Minnesotans have sent us here. That's what we're here for. Putting transparency on the fraud issue, making sure that we're addressing that and stopping fraud, making sure that we're addressing affordability, making sure that our schools are strong and our communities are strong. But then on more of a personal level within the Senate, it's going to be about relationships, about maintaining those relationships, about creating new ones of bipartisan relationships, and ensuring that the debates are happening in a fair and thoughtful way on the Senate floor. And it's not about campaigns, it's about good policy for Minnesotans. That would be a huge win in my book.
Mine as well. Senator, great conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.